In 1969, Neil Armstrong became the first human being to walk on the moon. Years later, at a gathering of remarkable people, he reportedly admitted feeling out of place, wondering why he was there and fearing he didn't belong among them. The man who heard those words never forgot them, because the feeling Armstrong described may be far more familiar than you think. The stranger was an accomplished author. Stunned, he asked how the first human on the moon could still feel like a fraud. What the astronaut admitted next revealed a deeper truth. Achievement doesn't always change how you see yourself, and that may explain why you can succeed and still quietly wonder if you deserve it. He said, "I look at all these incredible people and I think, what am I doing here? They built amazing things. I just went where I was sent. This was the first man to walk on the moon, talking about himself like an accident." And that single sentence closes the loop on something researchers now have a name for. Maybe you've never walked on the moon, but maybe you felt exactly what he felt. After the promotion, after the acceptance letter, after the moment everyone told you that you'd made it. That feeling has a shape, and once you see it, you'll recognize it everywhere in your own life. You earned the promotion, you built the result. Everyone around you sees your worth, yet deep inside, an ancient voice keeps whispering the same lie. You just got lucky, and soon they'll see right through you. That inner critic isn't trying to sabotage you. It is trying to shield a part of you that was hurt long ago. Praise should feel like relief. Instead, it feels like pressure. A compliment lands, and within seconds your mind is already looking for the flaw that proves them wrong. That's not insecurity. That's a very specific, very human survival strategy, and it has a name. Here's the strange part. This isn't happening because you're not confident enough. It's happening because somewhere inside you, two completely different versions of your life are running at the same time, and they don't agree with each other. One version is what the world sees, the other is what you privately believe, and the gap between them is where this feeling lives. What feels like modesty is often emotional protection. The success in your life is entirely real, but your internal sense of identity was locked away years ago, and it has never been allowed to catch up. One pioneering psychologist devoted his life to showing us how to unlock that hidden identity. His name was Carl Jung. And 100 years ago, he mapped something that modern brain science is only now catching up to. The difference between the mask you show the world and the self hiding underneath it. Jung called that mask the persona. And once you understand it, your own achievements will start to make a different kind of sense. Think about the version of you that shows up to work, to family dinners, to job interviews, capable, composed, in control. That's not fake, but it's not the whole story either. Jung called it the persona, the self we build to meet the world's expectations. Which means this, right now, might be happening inside you every single day, without you noticing it. Jung wrote that when we identify too closely with this mask, something strange happens. We start believing we actually are what we present. And underneath, a part of us knows the difference. That knowing, that quiet gap, is exactly what makes praise feel hollow. Because when the world praises the mask, some part of you hears it as praise for a performance, not for you. And that part doesn't stay quiet. Jung believed the unconscious always answers back. He had a word for that too, and it explains the anxiety that shows up right after your biggest wins. So let's go past the mask, past the performance, into the part of the psyche that's been quietly running this whole time, the part that decides whether success actually counts. This is where the real answer lives. Somewhere in your childhood, maybe a moment you don't even remember clearly, you learned that love or approval came with conditions. Do well, and you met it. Fall short, and something in the room went cold. That moment didn't disappear. It got stored, and it's been quietly running the show ever since. Jung called this a complex, an emotional cluster that forms around a wound and never fully lets go. And when it's built around feeling not good enough, psychologists call it an inferiority complex, which means every time you're evaluated, praised, or put in the spotlight, that old vault gets shaken, whether you want it to or not. Here's the part that changes everything. Your success doesn't get filed anywhere near that vault. It stays out in the open, in the conscious mind. The wound stays sealed underneath, completely untouched by it. Two systems, running side by side, never speaking to each other. When you live with this hidden gap, praise doesn't feel like safety, it feels like danger. Your mind can interpret a compliment as a threat to the quiet story it has used for years to protect you from rejection. Which means accepting your own worth can feel far more terrifying than failing ever did. To protect that familiar inner story, you learn to explain your success away. Maybe it was good timing, a generous boss, or pure luck. Anything that lets you dismiss the evidence that you might actually be capable. It isn't modesty. It's a protective pattern that favors familiar doubt over the vulnerability of truly believing in yourself. So when you dismiss a real achievement as luck, your mind is forced to make a dangerous trade. To prove you actually belong, you set an even higher standard, turning perfectionism into a full-time job designed to keep you from ever being caught. Which means every impossible expectation you hold yourself to isn't ambition. It is a guard, standing watch over an old wound. Here's a question worth sitting with. What if the goalpost keeps moving, not because you haven't achieved enough, but because arriving was never actually the plan? That's not a coincidence. That's the vault, still sealed, still calling the shots. Jung had a word for the piece of you living inside that sealed vault. The disowned, unfinished, unacceptable parts you learn to hide. He called it the shadow. And it isn't only made of flaws, which means the thing you're protecting yourself from might not be weakness at all. You may have learned to treat rest as weakness and needing care as something you should hide. But those parts of you weren't flaws. They were human needs. You learned to push away because they didn't fit the person you believed you had to become. Jung believed the psyche has a way of bringing those neglected parts back into awareness. Jung called this psychic compensation. The harder the conscious mind performs perfection, the harder the unconscious pushes back with doubt, trying to restore what's been left out of balance. Which means the anxiety after your biggest win isn't random. It's your psyche's way of asking to be seen. So the more you chase achievement to silence the doubt, the louder the compensation gets. That's why overachieving has never actually worked. It was never the right kind of answer. Which brings us to the part of Jung's work almost nobody talks about. The difference between fitting in and actually becoming yourself. Jung called the process of becoming whole individuation. And he said something that high achievers rarely want to hear. That meeting the world's expectations and becoming your true self are not the same project. Which means this, right now, might be the exact moment to ask which project you've actually been working on. None of this means your achievements are fake. You did the work, and you earned the victory. You simply asked those achievements to answer a question they were never built to answer. Am I finally enough? And when you stop asking your wins to heal your identity, something inside you can finally begin to settle. This hesitation isn't just in your thoughts. You can feel it in your body. When self-doubt has been protecting you for years, receiving praise can actually make your shoulders tense, making warm recognition feel like something you have to brace against. Your body isn't working against you. It is simply trying to shield you from an old hurt it assumes is coming back. Your brain isn't broken. It's doing exactly what brains are built to do, predicting the world based on old patterns and treating anything that doesn't match as a problem to correct. Which means the discomfort you feel after success is proof the pattern is old, not proof that you're a fraud. So here's the shift. Not forcing yourself to feel confident, not collecting more achievements to prove the old belief wrong. Something quieter, and honestly, something kinder than anything you've tried so far. It starts with a question almost nobody with this pattern ever asks themselves. What if the achievement was never on trial? What if it's the belief, I am not enough, that's actually the outdated evidence here? That single reframe is where real change tends to begin. Therapists call this schema work, gently identifying the old belief, tracing it back to where it started, and giving your adult self the chance to update it, on purpose, with evidence. Which means this: the video you're watching right now could be the very first piece of that evidence. There's also a simpler practice, one used in compassion-focused therapy, noticing the self-critical voice and asking it one honest question. Whose voice does this actually sound like? For most people, the answer surprises them. Because that critical voice was never really about your competence. It was about a much younger version of you, trying to stay safe, loved, and worthy of staying in the room. And that younger self doesn't need to be defeated. It needs to be finally heard. This is what Jung meant by integration. Not erasing the mask and not being ruled by the wound underneath it. Bringing both into the same room, so neither one has to run the whole show alone. And when that happens, something quietly extraordinary starts to shift in how success actually feels. You will still doubt yourself sometimes. That's human. But doubt stops being the whole story once you stop needing your achievements to prove your worth. And that shift changes how you carry everything you've already built. This doesn't mean the ambition disappears. High achievers rarely stop reaching. What changes is why you're reaching. Not to finally earn your worth, but from a place that already knows it. And that difference is the entire difference. Somewhere, that astronaut is still remembered for a single sentence spoken quietly at a dinner table. Not for the moon, but for admitting he felt like he didn't belong. And maybe that's the real lesson hiding inside his story. Not that the feeling of not belonging ever fully disappears, but that it stops being proof of anything. It's just an old visitor passing through. And once you know that, you get to decide how much power it actually has. You were never actually an imposter in your own life. You were a person carrying an old belief that success alone was never built to change. And beliefs, unlike self-worth, were always meant to be updated. So the next time you accomplish something and feel that old flicker of not enough, try not to argue with it. Just notice it. Thank it for trying to protect you and keep walking anyway. Because the goal was never to silence self-doubt completely. The goal was never to eliminate self-doubt or force yourself to feel fearless. The goal was to stop believing you have to fix every insecurity before you are allowed to feel like you belong. Because that belonging was never something you had to earn in the first place. If something in this video felt uncomfortably familiar, that's not a coincidence, and it's not a flaw. It's simply the first honest look at a pattern that's been running quietly for a long time. And naming it is already the beginning of changing it. You don't need to rebuild who you are to be worthy of what you've created. The person who built your life was already worthy, long before anyone else stood up to notice. And that may be one of the quietest truths at the heart of Jung's work. You were never an imposter. You were just carrying a belief that hadn't caught up with you yet. It's allowed to catch up now. If this helped you understand yourself a little more clearly today, there's more of this waiting for you. Subscribe, and let's keep uncovering the parts of yourself worth knowing.